circumstantial evidence as well as direct evidence. That is, you're trying to infer, did the president ask for a political favor? And I think this record supports the inference that he did.
What comparisons, Professor Carlin, can we make between kings that the framers were afraid of and the president's conduct today?
So kings could do no wrong because the king's word was law. And contrary to what President Trump has said, Article 2 does not give him the power to do anything he wants. And I'll just give you one example that shows you the difference between him and a king, which is the Constitution says there can be no titles of nobility. So while the president can name his son Baron, he can't make him a baron.
Thank you. The founding.
All right, guys, so what you just witnessed there was a precedent set in politics by Democrats, because they do set the precedents in politics in regards to what is considered to be fair game and what's considered to be, totally fine in political discourse, which, Democrats basically set the precedent that it's okay to attack or invoke the president's children, okay, including their not grown children, as you saw there. That was Democrats laughing at some Democrat witness invoking Barron Trump in her witness testimony during the impeachment inquiry of President Donald Trump, right? They was laughing, right? It was a joke. It was funny to them, right? Bringing the president's not grown child, his minor child, into a partisan impeachment inquiry. And this is not the only time Barron Trump has been subjected to attacks from leftists, liberals. You had Rosie O'Donnell suggesting that Barron Trump may have autism. You had a Food Network host, John Henson, who put out a tweet in which he implied that President Trump is not Barron Trump's father, okay? That Melania Trump cheated on Trump and had a kid by a different man, right? This is what this person implied. Again, Democrats thought they were fair game, okay? Along with attacking the president's grown children. Now, I'm not sure, right? Or, I don't remember any conservative or Republican having the cojones to come out and attack Obama's children or to drag Obama's kids into politics, right? I'm sure Republicans and conservatives had the respect for the Obamas and their family to not drag their kids into politics. But again, Democrats once again set a precedent that, hey, it's totally fine to drag the president's children into politics. And that leads us to this story that we got to talk about today, which is Joe Biden finally acknowledging his 7th grandchild, the child of Hunter Biden, who he had with a stripper, okay, just one of many 304s that Hunter Biden dealt with. He just so happened to get this 304 knocked up and, again, had a kid with her.
The child in question, just 4 years old, a girl Hunter Biden had with Lunden Roberts. He says he had an encounter with while he was battling his cocaine addiction. Writing in his 2021 memoir, quote, "I had no recollection of our encounter. That's how little connection I had with anyone. I was a mess, but a mess I've taken responsibility for."
Security at an all-time high as President Joe Biden's son Hunter appeared in court today.
Hunter Biden settled a years-long paternity battle earlier this summer with Roberts in an Arkansas court. Back in 2019, Roberts said in court filings that a DNA test established with, quote, "scientific certainty" that Hunter Biden is the father, something he had previously denied. He agreed to pay monthly child support in 2020. And the new settlement between Hunter Biden and Roberts includes a college fund, an undisclosed amount of child support, and a number of Hunter Biden's paintings to be selected by the little girl. Efforts to reach Roberts for comment have been unsuccessful. Republicans now looking to turn President Biden's family story, long seen as a political strength, into a liability. The president has not counted this grandchild, his 7th, when he talks about them.
I have 6 grandchildren. I speak to them every single day.
Conservative outlets pointing out how the White House Christmas stocking this year did not include the little girl. The White House asked earlier this month about it all.
There was a story in the New York Times over the weekend about Hunter Biden's daughter in Arkansas. Does the president acknowledge this little girl as his granddaughter?
I don't have anything to share from here.
He is now acknowledging that child after ignoring her, basically treating the White House dog as a member of the family more so than his actual blood, right? And CNN is going to discuss this with a panel, and the CNN host is going to get super triggered by the GOP panelists basically telling the truth about this situation in regards to Joe Biden not acknowledging his 7th grandchild. And it's pretty glorious to watch CNN melt down over the truth. Take a look.
So one thing that we heard some of the GOP candidates bring up in Iowa, President Biden is now acknowledging his 7th grandchild. There was a statement out on Friday night. Our son Hunter, they said, and Navy's mother Lunden are working together to foster a relationship that is in the best interests of their daughter, preserving her privacy as much as possible going forward. This is not a political issue. It's a family matter. Jill and I only want what is best for our grandchildren, including Navy. So just for a little bit of context here, the president had come under scrutiny for only acknowledging his other grandchildren, his first 6 grandchildren. I shouldn't say first 6 grandchildren, but the others that the family has acknowledged who have the Biden last name. And his family ultimately decided to do this. And Michael LaRosa, you worked for Jill Biden for a long time. Can you help us understand this a little bit? Because I do think for many of the critics, certainly, and there was a Maureen Dowd column about this in the New York Times, this is a very innocent little girl who did nothing wrong, despite, what her father, Hunter Biden, may have been going through at the time. Why now for the Bidens? And honestly, why did it take them so long?
Well, 2 things. First of all, I respect you as a journalist for having to ask the question, but it is a very gross and uncomfortable subject to talk about as it is.
Well, let's not call a little girl gross. Okay?
No. I'm talking about the intersanctum of a family and the privacy of what goes on in a family. And you're right, that little girl, she should not be weaponized by the Republicans who are down there in Arkansas with conservative lawyers and conservative PR people and posting on their Instagram. They shouldn't be weaponizing her. And everybody's welcome to make their own personal judgments on the Biden, but it is frankly, they are a family, a real family with real feelings, with real struggles and challenges, like every family. And I guarantee you that the more that the Republicans make this an issue, it will not work. Voters appreciate, voters relate to having struggles in their own families. They root for people with vulnerabilities. They root for people who understand and relate to them. And, ultimately, the Bidens are a real family, just like everyone else. Sure.
But Scott Jennings, the president has made being a family man a central part of his political identity.
It's not Republicans, with all due respect, who made Hunter Biden into a complete scumbag on this and other issues. The ignoring his own daughter for 4 years, and the President of the United States hanging up a stocking for the dog, and not for his 7th grandchild.
Okay, look, we can also have sympathy for people who are struggling with addiction. Let's keep this conversation respectful.
Listen, I totally agree. And you know where I'm from? A lot of families deal with addiction. And you know who ends up picking up the pieces? The grandparents. And in this case, the grandparents would not acknowledge this little girl. It is offensive. But the bottom line is...
But they have now.
Oh, what a hero. The polling must have been brutal.
The
polling must have been brutal.
No one ever questioned the heart and integrity of Joe Biden as a family man and as a human being, and the pain and suffering and loss that man has been through, including the struggles he deals with.
30 seconds, Karen.
I think it is far more appalling to see Republicans this week, starting with you, Scott, calling the Vice President of the United States a liar when it comes to the very real personal stories. I don't need, some, academic to tell me about the horrors of slavery. It's in my own family. I know from my own family stories. You now have Black conservatives who agree with her. Are they liars too? I think that conversation is far more troubling than an addict and a bad family situation.
Let me put a pause on this. Last word here, then we're going to go to break.
It's a nice attempt at a pivot, but it's not about Hunter Biden's addiction. This is about Joe Biden not recognizing his granddaughter for 4 years. The statement might be well worded, but it's inexcusable. It took him 4 years to acknowledge the child of God. It was conceived regardless of the circumstances of that conception. It's a child of God he wouldn't recognize for 4 years.
I understand why you'd rather talk about that than talk about the fact that your party is demonizing people who want to tell the truth about racism while you're trying to reach out to African American voters.
We're going to keep this conversation focused in on what is. We've got a lot more to talk about, and we'll be right back.
Yeah, so what I find to be so hilarious about this conversation is that this CNN host is trying so hard to protect the Bidens, right? It's almost like she's being forced to talk about this subject. She doesn't want to talk about it. She's trying so hard to protect the Bidens that even the guy that clearly is defending Joe Biden and saying that, hey, talking about this story involving his granddaughter that he doesn't want to acknowledge, that is gross. And the CNN anchor immediately gets triggered, even though what he's saying is that, well, anybody talking about the story is gross. He's not calling the granddaughter gross. And then when Scott Jennings correctly characterizes Hunter Biden as a scumbag for not acknowledging his child, she gets triggered by that too, right? Well, let's not make fun of a person and their addiction, right? Let's not make light of that. And it's like, well, I don't sure if his addiction has anything to do with the fact that he is not acknowledging his child, right? Because again, like Scott Jennings pointed out, they're treating the family dog better than they're treating an actual blood family member, right? Again, it's shameful. It really is. Okay, it is shameful, and it is something that, in my opinion, Democrats opened up. They opened up the door to have these type of conversations because, again, they weren't saying that Barron Trump is off limits, right? Let's not talk about Barron Trump when the liberals were attacking Barron Trump, right? They were kiki and ha-ha. Oh, no, it's totally fine. Let's make fun of Trump's grandchild and invoke him into political conversations, right? But again, the fact of the reality is that Joe Biden not acknowledging his grandchild, Hunter not acknowledging his child, despite the fact that publicly there is a dispute over, child support, right? And we know that he is the father. Again, it's disgusting behavior. It really is. And it doesn't make Joe seem like the family man that he claims to be, right? Family man Joe, which again, it's, a political strong point for Joe. Don't look good for you to basically leave your 7th grandchild out to dry just because you're ashamed of how she came up into the world, right? Or how she got conceived. Your son out here knocking up strippers, and it is what it is. And what's also hilarious about this is Karen Finney, okay, the woman who got triggered by Scott Jennings basically calling Kamala Harris a lie on the lie that Democrats are telling about slavery, claiming that Republicans want to say that it was a net benefit to black folks. Her getting triggered. It's funny because she worked for Hillary, and her dad is black, but through her mother, she's actually related to Robert E. Lee, the Confederate general, right? So she's a descendant of a Confederate general, right? And I'm sure that she knows the horrors of slavery, considering how, again, she is related to a Confederate general, right? Her up here pretending to be so outraged by Scott Jennings, just essentially acknowledging that, yeah, this is a political hit job, that Kamala Harris is lying, and that, this is just nonsense, right? She getting all pissed, trying to deflect from the actual conversation about Hunter Biden ignoring his grandchildren. But this is what Democrats do, right? Anytime there is a political issue that Democrats can't win on, right, where they're polling bad on, what they do is they deflect, right? They deflect back to some nonsense to try to avoid actually answering questions or talking about the subject at hand, right? Which is something that Republicans should do a lot more of, right? Republicans do too much playing defense, okay? But she just showed you what the Democrat strategy is anytime that Democrats are put against the wall, right? When it comes to issues that, again, they don't look good on, they just deflect and say, well, you're racist, right? You're defending racism, okay? This is what they do. When, again, you are a descendant of a Confederate, right? A direct descendant. What are you talking about? I think you should sit this one out, right? Sit this one out, okay? But again, it's just so funny to see people get triggered when, again, Democrats clearly are, put on a hot seat when it comes to an issue that they can't win on, that, clearly Joe Biden deserves some criticism for, because, again, he claims he's a family man. He's a family guy, right? But he's not engaged in what appears to be very, family-like behavior. But regardless, Democrats only have themselves to blame for this because they opened up the door, right? They opened up the door to say, hey, the president's kids, hey, we can invoke them in politics. We can attack them. This is what they did with Trump. Whether that was Barron, Ivanka, Trump Jr., whoever, right? They was like, nah, we can attack the president's kids. We can use them for political points. And now they want to boo-hoo, whine, and cry when Republicans do the same thing back to them. But hey, too bad, so sad. You should not have started by attacking Trump's kids. Now you got to deal with the fact that Biden and his child, right, is, you know, hey, causing him some political problems. And Biden caused himself some political problems by not acknowledging the fact that he had a grandchild, okay, and treating his dog better than he treats his grandchildren. It's shameful stuff. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.